There we go. So we are going to begin today with a land acknowledgement. The Mount Allison Students Union operates and carries out its work on the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which this nation first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. Okay, so first order of business, I'm seeking a motion to approve the agenda as well as a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Burke. Thank you, Councillor Minoka McKenney. Now I'm going to open up for any debate. Go ahead, Councillor Burke.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could add 2 items to open forum. I can also add them to new business if you feel more appropriate, but I just wanted to touch on for information about COVID and testing, and then as well the elections.
Okay, I might see that more fit in open forum. If you want to save those for then. Go ahead, Councillor Minoka McKenney.
I also have an addition to open forum as well too, for feedback on Masu OER campaign.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Minoka McKenney. Do we have any other additions or any other comments on the agenda? Okay, so I'm now going to seek a mover to accept these additions as well as a seconder. And can I have someone to second that as well? Thank you, Councillor Keller. And now we're going to go to a vote. So those that accept these amendments to the agenda, please write why am I forgetting what the letters are? A for approval, N for no, and then, oh no, that's not right. Y for yes, sorry, A for abstain, and N for no. I don't know why the word yes escaped me. That's probably the easiest word to remember. Okay, great. So we have approved our agenda. Now we're going to move on to approval of the minutes. Can I have someone first to move and as well to second? Thank you, Councillor Burke, and thank you, Councillor Fuzezi. So now I'm going to open the floor. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes from our last meeting? Go ahead, Councillor Minoka McKenney.
I have one motion to amend the minutes. It touches on a couple parts of the minutes, but I thought it'd be easier as one big motion. I noticed that in the minutes, anytime that a motion was recorded, the decision of the motion wasn't recorded in it. I believe big ones were approving the agenda from the last meeting, as well as the minutes, and then also motions that were in new business as well, including the motion to table one motion.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Now, does anyone, okay, hold on. All right, do we have any comments further than that, or? Okay, so could somebody please motion to accept Rowan's amendment, or Councillor Minoka McKenney's amendments, as well as the second. Thank you, Councillor Nolan. Thank you, Councillor Fuzezi. So we have now accept Councillor Minoka McKenney's amendments. Now, with these amendments, if we would like to approve the minutes, including these amendments, I'm looking for someone to motion to approve with these amendments now, and as well as the seconder. Thank you, Councillor Nolan. Thank you, Councillor Mark. And now, once again, we're going to go to a vote. So Y for yes, N for no, and A to abstain. Okay, great. So now we have approved the minutes with the amendments that have been made. So we are going to now move on to reports. So if Councillor McLean Destasher, could you tell me how to say your surname, please?
McLean Destasher.
Destasher. Okay, great. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Awesome. All right, so this is kind of a summer report and then what I've been up to since the school year has started. So we had Senate caucus over the summer and we discussed our goals for the school year and how we may go about achieving those goals. It was very exciting to hear everyone's goals and I'm excited to collaborate in the school year. Senate committees in the spring, I was appointed to 3 Senate committees for the school year: the Academic Information Technology Committee, the Research and Creative Activities Committee, and the Teaching and Learning Committee. So far, I've only met with the Research and Creative Activities Committee. We discussed revisions to the current strategic research plan, as well as received an update from the director of the research office. And I think we're having another meeting sometime in October. Since elected, I've attended 2 university Senate meetings where a number of things were discussed as we transition to the new school year. So if anyone would like me to discuss for those discussions further, just send me an email. And then going forward, I plan on continuing to work towards my annual goals as outlined on the following page. In the immediate future, I was hoping to meet with Senator Dixon to start discussions on a way to share Senate news with the rest of the Mount Allison community. And then I have attached my Senate goals for the year. Do you guys want me to read those or?
Everyone has received the package and I hope that everyone has read those. Thank you so much, Councillor Grace Destasher. Got it? Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Councillor McLean Destasher? Nope. Okay, we'll move along then. So now we are going to move on to, hold on, I don't have the list right in front of me. Is this Councillor Keller's? My apologies, I forget what order I put them in and I don't have it up. Let me just pull up another one.
I believe it's Councillor Dixon's.
Oh, my apologies, Councillor Keller. Councillor Dixon, if you would like to go ahead, thank you. That'd be great.
Hello, everyone. So in my report, it's pretty detailed in the document that I sent to be uploaded. So I just give like a brief overview. So this summer, it involved a lot of planning and meetings with Senate caucus. And it was somewhat of a learning experience for me because I'm new to the MASU. So Senate caucus was definitely a platform in which I got used to the operations of the MASU and figuring out how to better serve science students. So this summer, I spoke a little bit with Councillor Minoka McKenney, sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly, regarding the Princeton Review and having it provide more practice / mock admission tests for the other than the MCAT, so like for the LSAT and for like other admissions tests. So he has been working on that over the past few months, and he has stated that in other reports that he has done. I'm also looking forward to collaborate with Councillor McLean Destetter. Sorry if I'm also butchering that. To create monthly newsletters to send out to students regarding relevant information between the different departments. And also this summer, I was appointed to sit on 3 committees: the Academic Matters Committee, the Academic Planning Committee, Research and Creative Activities Committee, and the Graduation Review Committee. So that's 4. I was added to the Academic Matters Committee because the Graduation Review Committee, I believe, only meets when it's time for graduation. So just to be a little bit more involved this year. And the Academic Planning Committee only met in the summer so far, and it was basically them wrapping up and preparing for this upcoming semester. The Academic Matters Committee met twice, and it was a very indulging committee so far. Just having 2 meetings at the beginning of the semester, a lot has been done. And the Research and Creative Activities Committee, I have only been able to attend 1 meeting because of conflict in my schedule, and I've outlined the rest of my goals in the document. But there is one thing that I wanted to bring attention to, and that's one priority for this specific semester, sorry. I've been hearing a lot of students in the Chem Biochem department discussing their disappointment with the Chem Biochem department because they didn't renew their license for ChemDraw, which is a very important software for chem students, chem majors, minors. So I've reached out to the Chem Biochem Society, and I'm hoping to have more discussion on that with them, work with them to create or to figure out what the issue is, and to hopefully gain access for all students without having any issues. So yeah, thank you.
Great, lovely report. Thank you so much for that. Councillor Dixon, does anyone have any comments for Councillor Dixon? Okay, if we have no further comments.
Oh, Madam Chair, actually, I do have one question. I think it was just missed in the chat.
Oh, sorry. I don't see any questions in the chat.
Oh, must have not sent then. Oh, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Councillor Minoka McKinney.
Thank you. First off, great report. Second, I wanted to ask a question about the ChemDraw for the Chem Biochem department. I had no clue about that. And when I read that in the report, I was happy to get the information, not happy about what's happening necessarily though. So does this mean then that students to use ChemDraw need to pay for it or use a free version that isn't as good? Is that kind of what is happening, or like how? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for your question. I think the issue is with Mac users. So I think what happened was the Chem Biochem Society did not renew their license. So Mac users are having issues accessing the software. I'm not necessarily sure the details of what's happening because I personally don't use ChemDraw, so I'm not 100% sure.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Does anyone have any further questions for Councillor Dixon? Okay, I don't see any more in the chat. So now we are going to move on to Councillor Keller. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Happy fall. It's finally getting chilly, so I'm not prepared for that. But yes, so I have been doing lots of work over the summer, mainly on the research side of things, and also I've been meeting regularly with the Senate caucus, and I've met twice with the Senate, as have all of the other members of the Senate caucus. Much of my work over the summer has consisted of research, first and foremost, researching letters of permission. As promised in my campaign, I want to either make letters of permission more accessible to students by reducing their cost, especially for if you're applying for multiple letters of permission in succession, or I want to make them more meaningful by having the grade that you earned from transfer courses included on your transcript. So I'm just researching other university policies on that, and I plan to speak to some of the deans in the registrar's office and come up with a plan of action that I will then present to Councillor Minoka McKinney, or rather the older of the two, since now there are two of them in this SAC. And so I hope to have that on his desk in the next 2 weeks or so. On top of that, I've also been looking into some scholarship reform along with Councillor Kruger and Councillor Minoka McKinney. Councillor Kruger in her report will go more in depth on our specific goal for scholarship reform. But broad strokes, it just includes meeting regularly with the Scholarships and Bursaries Committee and informing the Mount Allison Senate. Those are kind of what we can do within our power, and that's what we'll focus on. As far as committees go, I have yet to meet with any of my committees. I was appointed to the Academic IT Committee, the Committee on Emirati Appointments, and the Academic Integrity Committee. And I will be sure to include updates on that in future reports. And so going forward, my priorities, first and foremost, scholarship reform. I think that's very, very important. And then more independently, I'm going to be refining my plan of action for letters of permission and presenting that to Councillor Minoka McKinney, and reinvigorating a line of communication to the student body. Part of my research will involve collecting testimonies from the student body on their experience with applying for letters of permission. So I'm going to have to find some convenient and expeditious way to communicate with students to do that. So yeah, that's about it for me. Thank you everyone for listening. And thank you to all the members of the Senate caucus who have already presented. I really enjoyed your reports.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Councillor Keller. Does anybody have any comments or questions? So many kind words in the chat. So nice to see. Now we're going to move on to Councillor Kruger, if you would like to go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson Klein-Connect. Yeah, so I trust that you've all had a chance to take a look at the reports in the package. So I'm not going to go too in depth on anything. I'm a social sciences senator, and the two committees that I'm on this year are the Scholarships and Bursaries Committee, like Councillor Keller mentioned, as well as the University Planning Committee alongside Councillor Blakeney. So my main priority for the Scholarships and Bursaries Committee is to have a meeting with the committee. They haven't met in a number of years. So that's priority number one. And I'm currently working on my shared priority with Councillor Minoka McKinney and the MASU is to lower the scholarship renewal course requirement or credit requirement from having a 3.7 GPA across 30 credits to having a 3.7 GPA across 21 credits. So that was the policy that was amended last year for COVID. So that's objective number one right now. So I'm working on a report to approach the Senate committee with. And if anybody is interested in participating in that report in any way, shape, or form, whether that be, I'm working on compiling a report of the policies that other universities have in place, but I'd like to also include some student testimonies. So if anybody's interested in being part of that report, my email is in the Senate package. as I'm sure you can find it in other places as well. But yeah, feel free to get in touch with me. That would be really greatly appreciated. And then on the University Planning Committee, right now our main priority is addressing the new hires for the next coming years. And while we can't really discuss what positions are being considered, we can say that in our advocacy on the committee, we are strongly recommending positions that support indigeneity of the university and otherwise EDI. And so we're really looking forward to that. And it's been really interesting and it's been fun being on that committee. So yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Councillor Kruger. Do I have any questions from anyone for her in the chat? Okay, I don't see any questions at the moment. Lovely. I'm just going to pull up the agenda on my other computer here. Just give me 1 second, because it won't let me open another copy of this. So I have a template here. Okay, can you guys still see the other document? Okay, I'm seeing nodding heads. Perfect. Now we are going to move on to our business arriving from our last minutes. So first of all, we have the Open Educational Resource Funding proposal, as well as the letter of funding and support from Councillor Minoka McKenney. The information regarding these proposals was in the package from our previous meeting. But if anyone has any questions or comments on these, or if Councillor Minoka McKenney, you have anything further to say, please feel free to indicate so in the chat.
Actually, yeah, I do have just a couple things I wanted to add about the proposal.
Yep.
So first, I had a couple questions about some things in the proposal that I wanted to address now to everyone. So the $5,000 that is being allocated by the University Library and Archives Council, that $5,000 is coming from the Student Referendum Fund. That fund is not a MASU fund, even though the name sounds like it could be associated with us and that we're funding it. That is the $15 that the library charges everyone each year in their tuition, not in their tuition, in the fees that is in everyone's fees. So I wanted to clear that up a little bit. As well, I wanted to note just like how great this proposal is. I sent the letters of support on behalf of the executive that could be extended to the MASU as a whole. OERs is a big thing that is on the academic advocacy document this year. So this is a big win towards some things that we've been asking from the university, and should also lead to some great experiential learning opportunities for students as well too. And then of course some great OERs. So if anyone has any questions about the report or the letter of support that I sent to the Library Council, I'd be happy to answer them.
Lovely, thanks. Go ahead, Councillor Burke, with your comment.
Yeah, my comment is just how amazing this is. So this is like kind of previous VP academic in me, but OERs is a really big deal. That one textbook or that one grant to create a textbook could be used, say, for intro calculus, which could, mean that now 300 students, and then from every year on, like no longer have to buy that textbook coming in. And if you look at like Open Text BC, there's other provinces who are almost fully have adopted open educational resources at all institutions, and it's really exciting that Mount Allison is kind of taking the first step in the Atlantic provinces to catch up. So I just wanted to like shout out the grant, and then also shout out Councillor Minoka McKenney's like continuous work in pushing for open educational resources, because it's working and it's really exciting. And that's my comment.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have any more comments or questions? Okay, so our next item is the return of the Yoga Club Constitution. So we tabled this at our last meeting because of a missing signature, as there needed to be 2 executive signing officers and there was previously only 1. So now we have 2. But I am seeking a motion to approve the Constitution for Yoga Club. Thank you, Councillor Minoka McKenney, and thank you, Councillor Burke, for seconding. And now I'm going to open the floor. Does anyone have any further comments or questions on this? Go ahead, Councillor Fuzezi.
Thank you, Chairperson. This is more just for like a future reference. If ever there is another signature that is missing, I have done my homework. I have looked through all different protocols and procedures, and we can still accept or vote on a constitution, even if there is a signature missing. We will just have to ensure that the respective individuals do come in and sign as any other constitution. So for future references, now we all know, yay.
Yes, great. Thank you so much for that tip, Councillor Fuzezi. It's greatly appreciated. Do we have any more comments or questions? Okay, so if you have no further comments or questions, we're going to take this to vote. So Y for yes, N for no, and A to abstain. Okay, so we have now adopted the Yoga Club Constitution. Awesome. So now we are going to move on to our next order of business. We're going to move on to new business with another club constitution. Hold on here. Sorry, I'm just going to scroll down. All right, so Mount A Book Club. Could I please get a mover and a seconder to adopt the constitution for the Mount A Book Club? Thank you, Councillor Brooke. Thank you, Councillor Fuzezi. So now I'm going to open the floor to any questions or comments. Okay, so if we have no questions or comments on this item, then we're going to take it right to vote. So Y for yes, N for no, and A to abstain. All right, and we have passed the Yoga Book Club Constitution. So now I am just going to scroll up quickly to the agenda. And now I'm going to ask Councillor Burke to start us off an open forum with the COVID-19 update on campus.
Yeah, if I could also impromptu beat everyone to the punch this open forum in welcoming our new counselors. So their mandates will officially start next council, but it's really exciting, and congratulations all on well-run and well-run elections and campaigns and being newly elected. So very exciting. And I promise if it's your first time on council, everybody feels this way. And it does get easier. And we'll have council training soon to formally kind of adopt you into Robert's rules. Yeah, so with that, I wanted to touch upon two things. So first is COVID in general, and I have mentioned a lot of these points to council and emails between meetings, but I thought it would be good to have it on the record just for any student. I also want to say before I begin that I do have this all written down, and I will send it to the deputy chairperson so she does not have to try to copy everything that I'm saying as I'm saying it right now. So first is just what you folks already know, or most of you folks already know, other than our newly elected councillors, and that's that New Brunswick is having a very hard time right now with COVID. We have, I think, 45 people in hospital right now, which is very severe, and our resources are extremely stressed. And the mandatory order is going to be in place until there's less than 10 hospitalizations. But within the mandatory order, that does not specifically include that institutions have to go online. It does not discuss classrooms. The rule of 20 that it states about households is only to private and informal gatherings and not universities or businesses with formal plans. And social distancing is only applying in stores that are not doing proof of vaccination. So essentially everything that Mount Allison is currently doing is within what the mandatory order is suggesting that we do. And then as well with that, our vaccination status is at 96% as of right now. And October 1st was the cutoff to get your vaccination status in. So that's very encouraging. And students who are unvaccinated or staff and faculty will have to be tested 3 times a week routinely with rapid tests. With that, particularly about testing, so New Brunswick statistics of vaccine rates are okay, but our testing is not, and it's not as good as other provinces. And we're currently only using about 3% of the rapid tests that the federal government has provided us. And PCR wait times, as some of you folks may know, were up to a week in our region just last week. So with that, we are working with the university to try to push public health to let us use these rapid tests. So a big reason why we're not currently testing students on campus or having tests available for unvaccinated students is because public health is only allowing organizations to use the rapid test for routine long-term testing. So obviously this poses quite a big issue, especially when their resources are so stretched that PCR tests are keeping students away from campus for up to a week. So with that, as well as the NBSA, which is the New Brunswick Students Alliance, which for the new counselors, I'm also the chair of, we have reached out to the Minister of Post-Secondary Education to see if he will help us as well and ask questions to public health and the government as to why post-secondary institutions are not allowed to be, holding pop-up tests or rapid testing our vaccinated students, like we commonly see in Nova Scotia, which is doing much better than us. So I hope to have more information soon. New Brunswick did just open up rapid testing to high schools in some capacities, though a lot of them are moving to hybrid models. So we'll see. And then with that, in terms of models, so we currently, in our last correspondence with you folks, I had said that we were not supporting a move to online course delivery, and that is only because we don't feel like we have enough student consultation to tell the university that we support that decision, and as well in the correspondence that I have had with students, it's majority students asking to stay in person. But with that, we are going to be putting out a survey if Instagram and Facebook ever comes back online, hopefully, to kind of gauge student attitudes and concerns about course delivery, and reaching out to specific groups to see if there's any populations that we need to be thinking of in a higher priority as well. And then with that as well, the COVID working group is having an extra, or the COVID committee, which I sit on, is having an extra meeting tomorrow morning to discuss outbreak procedures. So what should we have in place if there are outbreaks on our campus, and contingency plans. So I should have more information soon at our next meeting. I hope we don't have outbreaks. We do have very high vaccination rates, and we are a SAC full bubble, but unfortunately we're on our way to 800 cases in this province. So yeah, that is all I have for my item on COVID. So maybe I'll take a pause to see if there's any comments on that or questions.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Councillor Burke. Go ahead, Councillor Kruger.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Councillor Burke, for your report and your updates. It's, really reassuring, I think, for all of us to know that we have somebody, and especially on the Students Alliance, who's really advocating for especially those rapid tests. So that's great to hear. I have a question that I may be able to have answered somewhere else. And if that's the case, that's great. And just send me on my way. But I just am still, I have a little bit of confusion in terms of COVID protocols for working spaces on campus. So for instance, at the student center, if you're sitting down working independently, do you have to wear a mask? As well as, because at the library, I know you do, but I just wasn't sure when this became like official university policy, because I was just a little bit confused on the rollout of that. But if you could, explain maybe.
Yeah, so that's actually something I was going to bring up tomorrow morning, because I was under the impression that when the province mandated masks, that meant that masks had to be on at essentially all times other than eating. So I think the reason that they might be allowed in, say, Gracie's is because it's technically a food service. But that is something that I also was wondering and a little bit confused about, because I find especially the commentary around the library has been quite confusing in my head. I've asked about it, and I know other people in the COVID group are also pushing that students are allowed to have food or drink if they're by themselves. But I know that's not necessarily the messaging that students are getting when they're walking into the library. And I think whether or not that space is going to be deemed unessential at some point is still up in the air. So these are all, I hope to be able to provide more feedback, but I won't point you in another direction just yet. I'll try to get more info where I can, and then bring it back.
Thank you so much, Councillor Rick. That helps a lot. And thank you again for everything.
Yeah, no worries.
Great. Thank you so much for that question, Councillor Kruger. Does anyone else have any comments or questions on Councillor Burke's COVID-19 update before we move on? Okay, I'm not seeing anything further.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Okay, I will try to keep this one slightly shorter. And I do also want to mention that please feel free to provide me any feedback or questions or concerns in the meantime via email. I really appreciate when you students reach out. That's why you're here on our council, is to be representatives. And the more that we hear from you folks and from students in general, the more we can kind of stand behind our advocacy in these meetings. Yeah, so with that, I was going to move on to my last item, which is elections. So I thought, obviously, congratulations to the councillors that were elected. But on a separate note, when we did send out the councillors, the election results, we also noted in that email, and I just wanted to like formally bring it to the attention of council, that we will be and do quite deeply apologize for the fact that our voting was held and opened on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. So that day was meant to provide a space for mourning and reflection and our actions and the election and opening that, despite it being a 48-hour election, was not appropriate. And we have, received feedback from students who were upset by it. And I think it's very just, and it was very avoidable and should never have happened. And unfortunately, even when we recognized and realized the kind of implications of our actions and what would happen the day before, it was too late to also adjust that in simply voting. And it meant that students got email blasts on that day, and that was just not okay. So we will be sending out a formal email later to, also say this to all students. And as well, we'll be reaching out before that to our Indigenous students and to our Indigenous Affairs office to formally apologize to them separately. But I am willing to take any questions or comments on that. And as well, not to put them on the spot, but if the elections office had anything to add, they can feel free. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I also want to note that it's not just on our elections office. All of the executive had to look over this timeline, and it should have been caught beforehand. So yeah, that is my item.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Richardson, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'd just like to echo what was expressed by Councillor Burke and our regrets and apologies for the timing of this election opening. The timeline I initially approved, which started on that day, was written very early in the summer before the day was declared as National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And I must admit that I never took the time to go back and reevaluate and change those timelines once that decision was made. So for that, I apologize, and it will be known that that will never be a mistake again. The other thing I would like to point out just while we're here is that there was some confusion surrounding the ballot for disability representative in this election as well. And I'd just like to take a moment to clear that up. So the way that this voting system works is quite complicated. Rather than there being an option for me to simply include self-identification options, to just say there is someone who identifies as such, I need to indicate in the system that there is a person who identifies as all of the options for self-identification. In other words, I identify every single person on the elections list, which is derived from a list of emails and names of all students paying tuition, members of the MASU. Or also with the first year ones. But specifically for this election, I identify everyone as having undeclared themselves for something, and then I manually enter into the system someone called segment holder. My friend segment holder identifies as anything that can be identified as on the ballot. So in this case, that ethnic minority student, LGBTQIA2S+ student, international student, and a student with a disability. And at that point, all those options will appear for everyone else on the ballot. Initially, what I had done with the new disability rep position is added it in exactly the same way as the other positions had been done for the past 2 years, for which there hadn't been any problems before. And in fact, I actually tested the system twice before it was launched. So I'd sent it to a couple different emails. I sent it to myself a couple times on cloned test ballots, and there was no issue. All of the self-identification options were presented, and students were able to access all of the questions. So counselor, or rather they would be identified with the self-identification question, and then depending on what they answered, they would be able to see only the questions to which they had left the self-identification options. there appeared to be no issue, but nonetheless, I was up at the crack of dawn to make sure that the election would run smoothly. And unfortunately, it did not this time. So I noticed that the option to self-identify as a disabled student was not there when I checked the ballot at 8:30 a.m. I do not vote, for the record. I'm required not to vote, but I still do go into the ballot to make sure that the identification options are displayed as intended. Once I realized it wasn't there for me, I sent out messages to a couple people to confirm that it really wasn't there, which appeared to be the case at that point. So I moved to fix it as quickly as possible. I was presented with two solutions. Number one, which was my preferred solution, was to send out a separate question with a self-identification option for students to use. And the second option, which is the one that ended up getting used, is to have a ballot that everyone can access, and in the instructions insist that students only vote if they self-identify as having a disability. I also like to apologize for the sounds coming in. That's my Facebook catching up for all the messages that were sent earlier today, but people are only responding to now because of the outage. So I guess that's back. Anyhow, back on track. I sent out a ballot that had the disability self-identification option, but that also didn't work for no particular reason. There is no reason that that shouldn't have worked. It worked again, and I even sent that as a test ballot, and it still didn't work. So I went with option B, which it would have been impossible for that not to work. But of course, that relied on people actually having read the instructions. So that is where the confusion came from, and that many people were surprised that they received a second ballot for disability rep, even if they didn't identify as having a disability, because the disability self-identification option wasn't there. In the future, this will be remedied. I see no reason to throw out the election result, as students were still able to vote. And again, they had the option presented to them to self-identify. They were told not to vote unless they had self-identified as being disabled. But going forward, this issue will be remedied. I've actually already spoken to Simply Voting. I spent a great deal of time on the phone with them the other day because they could not figure out what was going on. I could not figure out what was going on. When you look in the preview, the disability rep question was there. So why hadn't it sent out? Nobody could tell me, until finally the guy on their end realized that there was an issue in their metadata coding, which is not something that I could have had access to on any level. And as such, I apologize that this was the issue, but frankly, it's something that could not have been seen or noticed. Now it has been through their data center, through their coding, and for future elections, this will not be an issue. So that's just to provide some clarification on that. We chose not to send out a clarification email because, as you can probably imagine from my long-winded answer and explanation, anything we could have said in an email would probably have just confused people more. So that's on the record orally, the explanation. And if anyone has any questions at all about the procedure and about the Simply Voting system, please just send them my way, massucro@mta.ca. Thank you.
Great, thank you for all that information. Oh, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Burke.
Sorry, that was my bad. Yeah, so I don't have that written in my notes, unfortunately, Mary, or Deputy Chairperson Summerby, but I think the summary there is Simply Voting did not work. But yeah, so just in general, I'm happy to take like any comments on anything that was stated about elections, or I'm sure Councillor Richardson can also speak to any comments, but I did just want to bring this forward so that council was fully aware of it in case they had not seen that email, and just so that council knew that this was something that we had recognized as well. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to open up for any comments or questions on that wealth of information. If you have any comments or questions, please indicate so in the chat now. Okay. Lovely. Councilor Minogue-McKenney, did you have another item as well for open forum, or was it just regarding the open educational resources?
Yep, I did have another item.
Okay, great. Go ahead with that now, please.
Great, thank you. This one is also around OERs as well too, but a different point of OERs. In my last report, I indicated how the MASU, we are, well, within my portfolio, I'm starting up this new program to get old resources from from MCAT stats, GMATs, LSATs, collecting them in the MASU office, and then giving them to the university library to then be put on course reserves so that students can take them out for free. What I'm asking council is for feedback on this, to see if this project could be called. I've yet to come up with a name that could actually describe it and isn't like 20 words long, and also suggestions on how best to collect these items. Now, this is something, if anyone has any suggestions now, I'd love that. But in my next report, I'll be detailing more about what this project is about. And I'm going to be starting up soon to collecting these resources to then give to the library. So if anyone does want to contact me after council or is interested in helping with this project, especially to any new counselors who may be looking to see a project and help out with it, that'd be amazing. But with this one, yeah, definitely just looking for feedback, looking to see how it could be best used.
Okay, great. Did anyone have any comments that they would like to make now or questions for Councillor Minoka McKenney? Okay, if there's no further questions, reminder that you can always send an email with any suggestions, thoughts, or comments to anyone that you hear from today. So if we have nothing new for open forum. So now we're going to move to reminders. Does anyone have any reminders that they would like to share? Go ahead, Councillor Ehler.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing super well. Usually during council meetings, I give a food box reminder. So especially for those who this might be their first time, every month the MASU offers a food box. It's like $45-ish worth of produce for $15 or $25, depending on if you're a new member or not. And the due date is this Wednesday, October 6th to sign up. There's more details on the MASU website, www.masu.ca/food-box-program. It's easier to just search for it. But it's well worth it if you are off campus, or hey, if you're in res and you want some extra veggies, take a look. And there's more details online. Thank you so much.
Great, lovely, thank you. Does anyone else have any reminders? Go ahead, Councillor Fuzezi. Oh, sorry, Councillor Burke first. My apologies, Councillor Fuzezi. I didn't see that.
Mine was just reminder to have a good long weekend. That was all.
Lovely. Okay, Councillor Fuzezi.
Mine was just about the Clubs and Societies fair Clubs and Societies exec training that happened yesterday. If there's any clubs and societies executives that could not make it, we did record the presentation / training, and all the presentation and information will be on the MASU website under Clubs and Societies tab area once Councillor Robinson does get it up. So yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Councillor Fuzezi. Is there any more reminders? I have one reminder of counselor training that's coming up. Woo! So we keep saying there's more information coming soon, but there really is more information coming soon. We promise. You'll know everything well before, a week before our training, which is going to be happening Sunday, October 17th. It'll be on campus. We're still in the process of booking some rooms, but we'll let you guys all in on that very shortly. I know I keep saying it, but I promise it's gonna come. Go ahead, Councillor Kruger.
Thanks, Councillor Kleinknecht. I'm really excited for counselor training. I don't want to sound like I'm not. I'm just wondering, like, is there a point at which we might just considering all like the more recent COVID cases in the area, like, is there a point where we might move that training online, or like, is it confirmed and we're going ahead and doing it in person for this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I do have a room booked over our total number of people that will be present. So we're planning on doing it similar to classes, as classes are running in person. We were just kind of following suit with that. However, if people are not feeling comfortable to come in person, we could explore online options. But as of now, we are planning on going forward with an in-person mask on and social distance by 1 meter training day. Great. Do we have any other questions, comments, reminders? Go ahead, Councillor Minoka McKenney.
Actually, I'll let Councillor Keller go first.
How nice. Go ahead, Councillor Keller.
Thank you, Councillor Minoka McKenney. Just a reminder that Presents the Improv is back off the ground. So if you'd like to come for a night of fun in the pond, we have a show every Wednesday at 9:30. So come on out, there'll be drink specials and your donations will go to charity or acting lessons, depending on how badly we need them. So thank you.
Thank you for that reminder, Councillor Keller. I've begun going to improv and it's loads of fun. I recommend everyone go. Go ahead, Councillor Minoka McKenney.
This one is kind of out of order in council, but I think it'll be fine to say, it's considering we're getting close to end of council. I just hope everyone who is new to council now had a good first council, unless people have more stuff going around the end. But I hope that you all, well, I know you all are going to do great things in the MASU, and I want to just say that I hope you all have a great time on council, and welcome to council.
Thank you, Councillor Minoka McKenney. So lovely. Go ahead, Councillor Nolan.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to mention that you all would have received an email from Councillor Burke regarding the TA and teaching assistant research that the comms class is conducting. So if you've ever been a TA or like a peer tutor or anything, look to that email to register for the interview process. I think it'd be greatly appreciated by the class and also help us in future advocacy efforts. So just wanted to throw that out there for everyone who's a part of this call right now.
Great, thank you so much. Does anyone else have any more reminders or comments to say? Okay, so I am going to ask any members in this meeting right now who are not part of council to please leave. And I'm going to seek motion to go in camera. Thank you, Councillor Pierce, and thank you, Councillor Nolan. Councillor Nolan, I have a question for you. Can the newly elected councillors be here for open camera? Because Councillor Burke and I talked about their first official meeting being next week, or at our next meeting.
Yeah, they can remain in camera because of when their mandate starts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay,
it's just
perfect.
like their attendance, I think, is
Okay.
not starting until, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that, Councillor Burke. Okay. Now I am going to share a different document.
Oh, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think this was noted in the chat, but just a quick point of order too. If there could be a reminder of what the rules for in-camera is and what in-camera is, just for our new councilors.
Yeah, sure. I have a nice little handy dandy collection of papers that will do a better description than what I would be able to do off the top of my head. Give me 1 second here. Counselor Nolan, do you mind doing the explanation? I don't want to mislead, as I too am still kind of new to some of this stuff.
Yeah, no worries. So basically in camera, we use it for confidential matters, and I guess matters of relevant importance that would be confidential. So an example is what you're about to see right here. The MASU hires staff, part-time staff, and those staff have to be approved by the SAC. So right now we're going to move to discuss hiring process in an individual who is hopefully going to be hired pending approval of council for the Ellisonian editor position. So basically just a sort of summary is anything that happens in camera is to be kept confidential. So it shouldn't be discussed with like your friends or your parents or anything outside of council. And it's strictly a here thing because some of the things we usually do it for hiring, but there's some other minor examples that I can't think off the top of my head of right now for things that we would go in camera. But basically, if you have anything that you think would be confidential in nature, this is where we would discuss it.